Hey guys, this is Leah from Dumpster Fire Budgets. I did a recording today. I did this at work on my lunch break, so don't feel like I was doing anything I wasn't supposed to be doing. But I've been really inspired by a couple people, especially like Remy Clog, who I am probably pronouncing her name completely wrong, but I will link her down below. So just a couple individuals that really show how they steward their own things at home and what they do to clean up. And so I was inspired to go through my books today at work, and this is just a portion of them, these two shelves. I haven't told you guys what I do yet, but I will tell you it's in the spiritual religious realm, and I have an office at a pretty busy place, and I love what I do. But there are times that I just need to take a minute to refresh and to start over and to see what life might look like when things are a little less cluttered and a little less crazy and a little less hectic, even though I love the chaos in my work. So this was just a great place for me to visually see what it looks like when I can kind of reset and be back at the space that I want to be. So as you can see, I'm taking a few books off the shelf here and there, but sliding books over, all the good, exciting things. And so a little bit about me is I started out my childhood. My mom taught me how to read when I was about 4 years old, and I didn't stop. So my brother and I both were pretty advanced in school, got to do a lot of reading, got to do a lot of writing. I don't consider myself a writer, even though I've put a couple books out, just self-published, some of my own self-growth work. And our oldest child was born with a limb difference, so just a book about that and what it means to cope and to move through processes. But in the middle of all of it, I can say that books were a huge part of my childhood. I loved to read. I loved adventure. I loved the excitement and the mystery, and it felt like I had a bunch of friends. Not that I didn't have real life friends, but book friends were just a huge part of how I grew up. I lived in a real rural town, so, going over to a friend's house or just popping over next door wasn't really an option because there were no kids that lived within several miles of me. So, no, I take it back. There was one kid, but we hung out sometimes, just not very often. So really friend trips were planned. So it was either my brother and I or myself off in the woods hanging out with my dog or my dogs, depending on how it was at the time. And really spending a lot of time in isolated activities, which suits my personality very well. I'm very much an introvert, even though I play extrovert at my work. So that's always a really interesting dynamic when people outside of work meet me and they go, "You're a whole lot quieter outside of work." Like, yes, absolutely I am. And I am okay with that. Some of my favorite activities are just sitting and looking off the front porch or reading a book or going for a walk. And while my house is a little bit chaotic right now, not in a bad way, but we just always have noise and activity going on, which is a huge blessing because we have 3 and 1 on the way. So there's just always something going on, which is different from my childhood. There was rarely something going on then. So books, all that to say, books hold an important place in my life. And I decluttered a ton over several moves. I moved once up to St. Louis. I moved once to Kentucky. I moved to Virginia. I moved to Tennessee. I moved back to Virginia. I moved back to Tennessee. And really have enjoyed all the spaces that I've lived. Lived in Georgia some. But in the middle of all that transition, I cut down a ton of my books. A bunch of my books from seminary just weren't serving a purpose for me anymore. I decided not to become a pastor, which never really was in my cards anyway. But I do work in the religious capacity in a spiritual capacity more than anything. And again, I love what I do, but I don't need textbook resources. What I do need is human knowledge and the understanding of human theology. So that has been just a beautiful part of learning what I need. So in my decluttering, I got rid of probably 100 seminary textbooks and additional readings that were not assigned, but you need to read anyway. Stuff from my undergrad, stuff that I had read as a kid but no longer interested me. And it's really hard when it feels like you're moving a friend on. Now I read Marie Kondo at one point, and she talks, this is probably a terrible summarization, but she talks about how you can thank the objects that you've had in your life and then let them move on so they can have new life again. And that brought me a strange sense of comfort, just recognizing that I could let my things go, and that doesn't mean that I didn't love them anymore, or I didn't appreciate them anymore, or I wouldn't carry the stories with me. It just really meant that it was okay for somebody else to have a turn. So boxes and boxes of books moved on. Again, this is still just a small section of the books that I still have. That might not be fair. This is probably 2/3 of the books that I have right here. And you'll see later on the top shelf, I was having a little bit of difficulty figuring out what to do with I have some binders with information in them that I have to access maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but I don't ever want them to be too far away from me in my workspace, as people come to me for counsel or for interest or just general mentorship. So I always like to have those binders nearby, and you can see at the very end I set them up straight. I did not like it, and so I laid them down. I'm probably still not done, but that's okay. And you can see I incorporated a couple different concepts here. So at first I had separated out the books that I have read through and through and keep for referencing when I need to or when I want to, or if something just really stood out to me and I want to be able to gift that book to somebody. One of the things that I love to do is, if I have a book that has made a huge impact on my life and somebody comes to me and asks me questions that might pertain to that book, or that might really just pique that interest of mine and go, oh, you know what? I read a book one time I think you would really enjoy that talks about this exact thing. I like to have those books that I can give away. So the first section there that I was dividing out were those books that I could give away. I ultimately decided to move those to a different shelf over to the left-hand side there that you can barely see, so that I would immediately know that I had read them. Now, the shelf that's right in front of me that I'm sorting through, I ended up putting some money books together for a few minutes because I've really been working on stewarding of my own finances, hence the dumpster fire budget. Because that kind of feels like where we are right now. It's a huge dumpster fire, taking care of your mental health and taking care of things that we've put off for too long, and then interest rates are astronomically high right now, and it just feels like no matter what we do, we're just gonna spin in our tires, maybe falling behind a little bit, maybe getting ahead a little bit. In between there, we had, we've been married about 8.5 years. For about 5 of those years, my husband was out of work for various reasons, and so it really feels like we're behind, but we're not. And one of those reasons was just the childcare expenses. I don't know about you guys and where you live, but right now we have one in daycare, and it is $194.75 a week, which is just a lot of money. That's $200 a week. That's $800 to $1,000 a month. And when we had 3 in daycare, it just didn't make any sense whatsoever. and it was really hard financially, and we were really lucky we had family help us out a little bit financially, but honestly, we don't have anybody who lives near us that can really just step in and say, you know what, I'll watch your kids for you. We don't have grandparents nearby. We don't have aunts, uncles, cousins, any of those things. So we're just here figuring it out. And sometimes that means some really expensive choices. We're a 2-income family and don't really have the option to not be right now because we've gotten ourselves in a little bit of a hole. So part of this journey is figuring out how to be a better steward of just every resource that we have and every capacity that we have. The dumpster fire budget is really one of the starting points, but Dave Ramsey talks about how it's more of a heart problem, more of a spiritual problem than anything. Because we both have fine incomes. It's just not exactly what we need in order to get ahead at this point. And that can be really difficult. We don't know if my husband's going to be called in from remote work, which makes things more difficult. It's just a whole mess. Anyway, I'm sure we're not the only family struggling with all sorts of messes like this right now either. But I'm here verbalizing it and telling you guys perfection is not achievable and it shouldn't even be the goal. Just moving forward a little bit every single day and taking responsibility for the things that have been done, recognizing that, holding in the past because I should have done something different or I could have done something different isn't really ultimately going to be helpful. I'm a huge advocate for people moving out of their shame and out of their guilt and into whatever they need to do to start healing. So this is part of my progress towards healing. I think one of the things Remy, again, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Remy Klog says is that a messy house, I forget exactly how she says it, but something about a messy house does not ever make you unworthy. That's at least how I hear it, and I love that. There were points in my life where it felt like if anything was out of order, then everything would fall apart, and that's really a symptom. Like, there were a lot of things falling apart at one time, and it was a struggle to try and keep things together. And I know I say a lot in here, but I'm thinking and I'm driving and doing a voiceover, so when you hear background noise, that's what's going on, because I have quite a bit of a commute, and this seemed like a good use of my time, while I'm not really distracted by much of anything else. And it's just been quite a day at work. But again, as you can see, as I'm traveling through this space and I'm sorting these books, I also incorporated the rainbow method. I'm not really sure what it's actually called. There are a couple ladies on the TV that organize things by color. Anyway, I thought I might give it a shot and ended up moving my money books and integrating them. And my goal is this shelf that's right in front of me that I'm focusing on. These are the books that I want to read through. So I'm going to start just going in order. So today, part of my job entails being caught up on research and on some of the things that are going on in the world that I'm in spirituality and religious. And so a lot of the books that are in front of me, some of them are just for fun, but some of them are fun to me, but they incorporate some of that knowledge that I need to have for board certification and all the good things that I get to do yearly. So this is a great space for me to kind of look at those books and start from the left-hand side and work my way over to the right. And the ones that are religious or spiritual in nature, I can count towards those hours. I used to read a ridiculous amount. I would read 4 and 5 hours a day, sometimes 6 and 7 hours a day. I don't do that anymore. Actually, in fact, I rarely read anymore. Between all the chaos that's in my house and the busyness of my work, but I also recognize that it's a space for me to recharge. So I like being able to take those moments just in between care of what I do and just breathe and have a few minutes again to be who I need to be, and to remind myself of this is how I grew up. This is how I learn. This is how I learn best. This is how I enjoy processing material and information, much more than sitting in lectures. But so I hope that you guys don't mind my rambling too much, but hopefully by this time you've gotten pretty used to it. I like to think that the top shelf there, I don't know if you guys can see any of the titles or if you're even going to be from America, but that top shelf there is mostly humor books, or at least about 3/4 of it is. I love things that make me laugh. I love things that are going to continuously bring me joy in the middle of, sometimes my work is really hard and there's tragedy and crisis and chaos at least daily, if not several times a day. And really my pick-me-ups are looking at the comic books. I have Zitz, I have Calvin and Hobbes, I have Dilbert up there. And then some other books, Jimmy Buffett wrote some books, and he's a pretty good author. I was very surprised by that because I thought he was just a musician. But I have A Pirate Looks at 50. I think I ended up putting that over on the left-hand shelf, though. But all of that to say, I enjoy humorous things. I enjoy things that will make me laugh and bring some space in the midst of chaos that isn't chaotic, or at least is a planned chaos. There's some YouTube channels that I watch fairly religiously. I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Dr. Glaucomenflecken is one of them. It feels very true to character and true to the space that I work in. It could be wrong. You guys are welcome to call me out on that. I really there's a channel, I'm not sure who runs it, but he talks about failure management a lot. He's really funny. I'll link these below just in case you guys want to look at them. They do a lot of shorts. I enjoy shorts because they're something that I can just look at for 30 seconds, a minute, and then move on, but I still get a good laugh out of it. Some part of me really wishes that I had more comedic talent. I know that I'm funny. In real life, I enjoy my own jokes. Sometimes other people do too, but not all the time. But I love how certain people and certain channels can just make me laugh. So anyway, as I continue sorting out everything here, you can see that I have started color coordinating all of the books, and I have started sorting out the top there in a way that makes sense to me. And in just a minute, I believe you will see me laying down my notebooks on their sides, which is really interesting. I've also been working on a couple different projects, just kind of seeing what will take off and what I have a passion for. I have started working on a couple of inventions of my own design, which I think would be useful. I have worked and done a lot of different jobs and have a lot of experience, mostly because I would work 2 or 3 jobs at a time. So my resume is full of all sorts of different skill sets. But the job that I work at now, I've been there for about 2 years. Really, in total, I've been doing this type of job for 6.5 years now. I'm not real sure. Time flies. It's been quite a while, I can tell you that. But here's the finished product. You can see that I laid the books down on the side, and thank you guys for watching.